Welcome to Mr. Phantom, where fear hides in every shadow and chilling tales come to life. Before we start, make sure to subscribe and like this video to get a scary story every night. The night has grown deep. Silence blankets the world outside your window, with only the soft whispers of the wind rustling through the leaves. The room is dimly lit, bathed in a warm glow that soothes the senses. This is the hour when the mind drifts freely, between reality and dreams, between wakefulness and a world unseen. Close your eyes. Feel the calm slowly wrapping around you. Take a deep breath. Let the air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly. Tonight, I will take you into a story. A tale that begins with a whisper in the dead of night, a sound that should not be heard. But what if that whisper is not just an illusion? What if the voice belongs to someone who should no longer exist? Prepare yourself. Let your thoughts sink into the gentle darkness of the night. Because tonight, you will hear the neighbor who whispers at night. I never expected to end up in Salem, Massachusetts. It wasn't exactly my dream place to live, but circumstances led me here. A job opportunity too good to pass up, a rent that didn't drain my savings, and a chance to finally be on my own after years of suffocating in a crowded city. I found an old apartment complex on a quiet street, a little run down but still holding on to a certain charm. Chipped brick walls, ivy creeping up the sides, and windows that rattled when the wind howled through the alleyways. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The first time I met my neighbor, I felt something off about him. His name was Mr. Holloway. An older man, probably in his late 50s, but he looked more worn down than his age suggested. His frame was thin, his posture slightly hunched, as if carrying some invisible weight. His face was gaunt, with hollowed-out cheeks and deep-set eyes that seemed to absorb all the light around them. His clothes were always the same, a brown wool sweater, slightly too big for his frame, and black slacks that hung loosely off his bony hips. But the strangest thing was how quiet he was. Most neighbors at least exchanged small talk, a polite nod, or even an awkward introduction. But when I first saw him in the hallway, he just stared. Not in a threatening way, not in an unfriendly way either, just a blank, lifeless gaze that lasted a few seconds too long. Then, without a word, he turned and disappeared into his apartment, shutting the door softly behind him. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he was just shy, or maybe he just didn't like people. I could relate to that, in a way. But then, I started hearing things. The first night, I had just settled into bed when I heard it, a soft whispering sound coming through the thin walls of my apartment. At first, I thought it was my imagination, the wind playing tricks on my tired mind. But then I heard it again, a murmuring voice, low and breathy. It was impossible to make out the words, but the rhythm of it was unmistakable, like someone was having a quiet conversation with someone else. I sat up, straining to listen. My apartment was old, the walls paper-thin. I had been able to hear the occasional creaks and groans of the building settling, but this was different. This was deliberate. Someone was speaking. I pressed my ear to the wall. The voice was definitely coming from Mr. Holloway's apartment, but there was no response. Just his voice, whispering softly, pausing, then whispering again, as if expecting an answer. I felt a chill run down my spine. Maybe he was on the phone, but why would he whisper like that in the middle of the night? And why did it sound so one-sided? I told myself it was none of my business, and forced myself to go back to sleep. But the next night, it happened again. Whispering, always around 2 a.m., always low, urgent, almost pleading, and always one voice. By the third night, My curiosity was starting to win over my unease. I stayed up on purpose, waiting for the whispering to start again. And sure enough, at exactly 2:07 a.m., the soft murmurs began. I inched closer to the wall, my heart pounding in my chest. This time, I could catch a few words. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean for it to happen." Then silence. A long pause. I held my breath. Then, barely audible, "Please come back." The hair on my arms stood on end. Come back. Come back from where? I couldn't explain why, but a deep, instinctive dread settled in my stomach. It wasn't just that he was talking to himself. It was the way he spoke, the desperation in his voice, the feeling that something was deeply, deeply wrong. The next morning, I saw him again. He was standing outside his apartment, locking the door as I stepped out to get coffee. I hesitated, then decided to say something. "Hey, Mr. Holloway," I greeted, keeping my tone casual. He didn't look up right away. When he did, it was as if it took him a second to register who I was. "Hello," he said, his voice hoarse, almost amused. I hesitated. Sorry if this is weird, but I think I might have heard you talking at night. Through the wall." I forced a small chuckle. "Thin walls, you know?" His reaction was immediate. His whole body stiffened, his fingers tightening around the key in his hand. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but something else. "Fear? You shouldn't listen," he said quietly. The words hit me like a cold gust of wind. I blinked. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, He cut me off. "It's better if you don't." His voice was flat, emotionless. But his eyes were full of something unspoken, something heavy. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. I watched him go, feeling my pulse quicken. It was better if I didn't what? Listen. Ask questions. I spent the rest of the day trying to shake off the interaction, but I couldn't. Every time I thought about his face, the way his eyes darkened when I mentioned the whispering, I felt that same creeping dread slither up my spine. And then that night, something changed. At exactly 2 a.m., I woke up, not from the whispering this time, but from a noise. A soft, rhythmic thumping. I sat up, my body tensed. The sound was coming from Mr. Holloway's apartment. It wasn't loud, but it was steady, like something was being rocked back and forth. Then, through the wall, I heard his voice. "Shoo, it's okay. It's okay now. I'm here." A pause. Then, even softer. "I won't let it happen again." My breath caught in my throat. I was done ignoring this. I needed to know what the hell was going on. Tomorrow, I was going to find out exactly who Mr. Holloway was talking to. I spent the entire next day trying to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to Mr. Holloway. The way he had reacted when I mentioned the whispering wasn't normal. It wasn't just annoyance at a nosy neighbor, it was fear. Fear that I had heard something I wasn't supposed to. By the time I got home that evening, the unease had settled deep into my bones. The apartment building was quiet as always, the dim hallway lights flickering every now and then. I paused in front of my door, glancing toward Mr. Holloway's apartment. The curtains in his window were drawn tight. There were no signs of life inside, but I knew better now. I went inside, locked the door, and told myself I wouldn't listen tonight. I'd put in earbuds, drown out the noise, and sleep like a normal person. But that was a lie, because as soon as the clock struck 2 a.m., I was wide awake, my breath shallow, my body already tensed in anticipation. And then, right on cue, the whispering started again. I turned onto my side, my heart pounding. This time it was clearer. "Please, please don't leave me like this." I clenched my jaw. I knew I shouldn't be listening. I knew I was pushing into something that wasn't my business. But my curiosity was a sickness, an itch I couldn't stop scratching. I slid out of bed, my bare feet barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. Pressing my ear against the wall, I strained to hear more. The whispering continued. I didn't mean for it to happen. You have to understand. I was scared. The voice cracked, raw with emotion. I'm so sorry, my love, please say something, anything. A shiver ran down my spine. My mind scrambled for logical explanations. Maybe he was having a breakdown. Maybe he had lost someone and was struggling to let go. That would explain the sadness in his voice, the pleading. But then something changed. A soft creaking noise filled the silence. It wasn't coming from the wall. It was coming from inside his apartment. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing myself against the cold plaster. It sounded like footsteps. Slow, deliberate. But here's the thing. Mr. Holloway wasn't talking anymore. And yet, I could still hear breathing. Not just his. My chest tightened. There was someone else in there. The air around me felt heavier, like the pressure had changed. My instincts screamed at me to step away from the wall, to go back to bed, to pretend I hadn't heard any of this. But I didn't. Instead, I moved toward my door. I didn't even know what I was planning to do. Knock? Confront him? Call the police? But something deep inside me, something primitive, whispered, "Don't open that door." I ignored it. Slowly, I turned the knob and peeked out into the hallway. The light was dim, buzzing faintly from the overhead fixtures. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. Mr. Holloway's door was slightly ajar, a crack just wide enough to see darkness beyond it. My breath hitched. Had he left it open on purpose? Had someone else left it open? I took a step forward before I could stop myself. And then, a shadow moved. Inside his apartment. My whole body locked up. It was just a flicker of movement, but it was there. A shape, shifting slightly in the darkness beyond the door. I should have turned back. I should have run. But then I heard him again. Mr. Holloway's voice, barely above a whisper. No, no, please don't. It wasn't directed at me. He was still inside, talking to someone else. Or something else. I backed up, my breathing uneven. I wanted to call out to him, ask if he was okay. But the words stuck in my throat. And then, in the silence, the door creaked open just an inch more. The darkness beyond it seemed deeper, thicker, like it was swallowing all the light around it. And then, a sound I will never forget. A soft, wet, rustling noise, like fabric moving, or something dragging along the floor. That was enough. I turned and slammed my door shut, locking it, bolting it, pressing my back against the wood as my lungs gasped for air. I stood there for what felt like hours, heart hammering against my ribs. The whispering had stopped. The footsteps had stopped. Everything was silent. But I knew I hadn't imagined it. I knew there had been someone in that apartment with him. And the worst part, Mr. Holloway had been afraid. Whoever, or whatever, he had been whispering to wasn't just in his head. It was real. And it was still there. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the darkness beyond Mr. Holloway's half-open door. I heard the whispering, the creaking, and that awful wet, rustling sound that I couldn't explain. My body refused to relax, every muscle locked in tension, waiting for something, anything to happen. But nothing did. When morning finally arrived, I felt like I had only just blinked. My limbs were sore from lying stiff in bed, and my mind was a foggy mess of exhaustion and fear. I wanted to believe that what I had heard, what I had seen, was just my imagination running wild, that it was some kind of auditory illusion caused by my paranoia. But I knew better. The memory of Mr. Holloway's desperate whisper, his trembling, "No, please don't," was carved into my brain. He hadn't been talking to himself. He had been begging, and someone or something had been there with him. I spent most of the day trying to rationalize. Maybe he had a visitor. Maybe he had someone living with him that no one knew about. Maybe I was overthinking everything. But if that were true, why had he reacted so strongly when I mentioned the whispering? Why had he warned me not to listen? I couldn't stop thinking about it. By evening, my curiosity had turned into something dangerous. I needed to know what was happening in that apartment. I had made up my mind. Tonight, I wouldn't just listen. I would watch. The clock struck 2 a.m., and I was ready. I had turned off all my lights, leaving my apartment in complete darkness. I had cracked open my window ever so slightly to let in the cold night air, hoping it would keep me alert. Then I moved to my front door, lowering myself to the floor as quietly as possible. From there, I had the perfect vantage point. Mr. Holloway's apartment was directly across from mine. His door was still shut, but after last night, I had a feeling that wouldn't last long. I waited. The building was silent except for the occasional groan of the old wooden frame settling. My heart pounded in anticipation. Would it happen again? Would I hear the whispering? The footsteps? And then, a click. My breath caught in my throat. The lock on Mr. Holloway's door had just turned. Slowly, painfully slowly, the door creaked open just a sliver. Darkness yawned from within, thick and impenetrable. I stared, unblinking, my entire body frozen. The whispering began. "I'm sorry. Please don't be angry with me." Mr. Holloway's voice. It was shaky, pleading. I leaned forward ever so slightly, my ears straining to catch every word. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't let them take you away. You understand that, don't you? My stomach churned. He wasn't just whispering anymore. He was answering something. I clenched my jaw, inching closer, my pulse hammering in my throat. Then movement. A shadow shifted within the darkness of his apartment. I sucked in a breath, gripping the edge of my doorframe. There was someone else in there. I wanted to run, to pretend I hadn't seen anything. But I was rooted in place, trapped in the sheer horror of what I was witnessing. And then I heard it. A voice. But it wasn't Mr. Holloway's. A woman's voice. But it was wrong. It was too soft, too breathy, as if the words were being pushed through lungs that had long since forgotten how to breathe. "You left me." A sharp, high-pitched ringing filled my ears. My entire body locked up. Mr. Holloway sucked in a ragged breath. No, I didn't. I swear I didn't. I kept you here. I kept you safe." The voice responded, this time barely above a whisper. "You let me die." A choked sob escaped from Mr. Holloway. "No, please don't say that." Then, a single, slow creak, like someone shifting their weight onto an old wooden floorboard, coming closer to the door. I slapped a hand over my mouth, my entire body trembling. And then, for the briefest second, I saw her, a pale, thin face peeking out from the darkness, just barely visible through the crack in the door. Her skin was stretched tight over sharp cheekbones, her eyes sunken, hollow pits that reflected nothing but emptiness. Her lips were colorless, cracked, as if they hadn't spoken in years. And yet, she was speaking. "You let me die." I felt something inside me break. My breath shuddered out of my chest. And then she moved. Her head snapped in my direction. She saw me. A sound came from deep within my throat, a strangled gasp of pure terror. I scrambled back, shoving my door shut and locking it in one frantic movement. I stood there, pressing my back against the wood, my heart about to explode from my chest. Silence. Then, a knock. Soft, almost polite. My knees almost gave out. I clamped my hand over my mouth, squeezing my eyes shut. Another knock. And then, Nathan, my name, spoken in her voice. I bit down on my knuckles to keep from screaming. Silence stretched on for what felt like eternity. And then footsteps. Soft. Retreating. A door creaked shut. I stayed there all night, my body too stiff with terror to move. I had made a mistake. I had listened when I shouldn't have. I had looked when I shouldn't have. And now she knew I was here. I didn't sleep. Not that night, and not the following day. I sat in my apartment, staring at my locked door, ears straining for any sound from the hallway. But there was nothing. Not a single noise from Mr. Holloway's apartment. Not even the usual shifting of floorboards or the occasional clatter of dishes. It was as if the entire building was holding its breath. But I couldn't forget what had happened. She had seen me. That thing, whatever it was, had turned its head and looked directly at me. And then it had spoken my name. That was impossible. I had never seen her before. I had never met her before. But she knew me. I needed to get out. Every instinct I had screamed at me to pack a bag and leave. Drive to a motel, stay with a friend. Anything to put distance between myself and that apartment. But what if leaving made it worse? What if whatever was in there could follow me? The thought made my stomach churn. I had no choice. I needed answers. By the time night fell again, I was ready. I hadn't left my apartment all day, but I had spent hours preparing. Every lock on my door was secured. My phone was fully charged and within arm's reach. And in my hand, I gripped a small pocket knife. Not that I thought it would help, but the weight of it made me feel less powerless. 2 a.m. I sat on my bed, my back against the wall, staring at my door. Waiting. At first, there was nothing. Then, a soft whisper, muffled through the walls, but unmistakable. Mr. Holloway. I'm sorry, please don't be angry. I gritted my teeth. The same words as before. I didn't want to hear them again. But then something changed. A new sound joined the whispering. Something wet. A slow, dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I swallowed hard. This wasn't normal. I moved to my door, pressing my ear against the wood. My pulse pounded in my head, each beat a countdown to something I wasn't ready to face. And then, a knock. I stopped breathing. It wasn't from Mr. Holloway's door this time. It was from mine. Soft. 3 slow taps. I staggered back, my blood turning to ice. No. No, no, no. I clutched the knife tighter, my hands shaking. And then, Nathan, a whisper, right outside my door. I slammed a hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. I recognized the voice instantly. Her voice, thin, breathy, just like before. But this time it was closer. Too close. I backed up, my heart hammering against my ribs. The knob rattled. Not forcefully. Not like someone trying to break in. It was gentle. Testing. Like she was waiting. Tears burned at the edges of my eyes. My knees nearly gave out. Then, the whisper came again. Let me in. I squeezed my eyes shut. No. No, no, no. I know you're in there, Nathan. My stomach clenched. I had never told her my name. She had always known it. I forced myself to breathe as quietly as possible. But then, she started scratching. Not banging. Not pounding. Just slow, deliberate scratches against the wood. Long, dragging nails, scraping from the top of the door to the bottom. I bit down on my lip until I tasted blood. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then, the footsteps moved away. Back to Mr. Holloway's apartment. A pause. Then, his door creaked open. I didn't dare move. For a long time, there was nothing but silence. Then, Mr. Holloway let out a single, strangled sob, and the door slammed shut. I stayed awake until the sun rose, my body locked in terror. I knew now that I had made a mistake. I had listened when I shouldn't have. And now, whatever was in that apartment, it wanted me too. I didn't leave my apartment the next day. Every time I so much as glanced at my front door, I felt the memory of that whisper crawling up my spine. Let me in. No, I wasn't letting anything in. But I also couldn't keep pretending this wasn't happening. I had heard it. I had seen it. And worst of all, it knew me. By the time evening rolled around, I was exhausted. My body felt like a tightly wound spring, every muscle coiled and ready to snap. I forced myself to eat something, though I could barely taste it. Everything inside me was on high alert. I kept thinking about Mr. Holloway. That sob, that final, heart-wrenching sound before his door slammed shut. I needed to check on him. I didn't want to. Every instinct I had told me to stay far, far away from whatever was happening inside that apartment. But I couldn't ignore the fact that this man was living next door to me. If something was in there with him, what if he was in danger? What if I was the only one who could do something about it? The thought made me sick, but I had to know. I waited until the hallway was empty before stepping out of my apartment. Mr. Holloway's door looked normal. Too normal, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. I pressed my ear against the wood, my breath shallow. Silence. I knocked lightly. No answer. I knocked again, a little harder. Nothing. A sick feeling twisted in my gut. Was he even in there? Had he left? I hesitated, then wrapped my fingers around the doorknob. I shouldn't have tried it, but I did, and it turned. My stomach dropped. The door wasn't locked. I had a horrible feeling that it hadn't been locked for a long time. I pushed the door open an inch. The apartment beyond was pitch dark. I swallowed. Mr. Holloway? My voice barely came out. Silence. I pushed the door open a little more, stepping inside. It smelled wrong, like stale air, sweat, and something else. Something rotting. I forced myself forward, my pulse pounding in my ears. The living room was a mess, papers strewn everywhere, dishes stacked in the sink, the carpet covered in dark stains that I did not want to identify. And then, a sound, a soft creak, from the hallway leading to the bedroom. I gripped my phone tighter, my fingers shaking. Something was in there. I took another step. The hallway was even darker, the air thick with something I couldn't name. I moved toward the bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. I reached out, and the door swung open on its own. I stopped breathing. The bedroom was almost completely dark, save for a sliver of moonlight cutting across the floor. And in that light, I saw it, a closet door, standing wide open. Inside, the darkness was deep, unnatural, wrong. And then, I realized something else. The whispering was coming from inside it. My hands turned to ice. It wasn't Mr. Holloway. It was her. You let me die. I felt my stomach drop, like the floor had vanished beneath me. I couldn't move. Then, something shifted inside the closet. A shape. A pale face just barely visible in the shadows. I didn't wait to see more. I ran. My body acted before my mind could catch up, shoving me backward, my feet nearly slipping on the carpet. I spun toward the door, lunging for the handle. Behind me, a soft, wet rustling sound, like fabric dragging across the floor, like something was crawling out of the closet. I yanked the door open and stumbled into the hallway. I didn't look back. I slammed the door shut, ran into my apartment, locked myself inside, and collapsed onto the floor. My chest heaved. My vision swam, but I knew what I had just seen. Mr. Holloway wasn't alone in that apartment, and whatever was in his closet, it wasn't human anymore. I don't remember how long I sat there on my floor, my back pressed against my locked door, my breath coming in uneven gasps. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the horrifying realization that I had seen her. That thing in Mr. Holloway's closet, it was real. Not a nightmare. Not a hallucination. She was there. And worse, she had been coming out. I gripped my knees to my chest, squeezing my eyes shut, trying to block out the image burned into my brain. The pale face, just barely visible in the sliver of moonlight. The way she had whispered to him, "You let me die." I felt sick. I should have never gone in there. But something wasn't adding up. Mr. Holloway had been whispering to her for nights, begging, apologizing. Was she haunting him? Or had he been keeping her there? A chilling thought struck me. If she had died, where was her body? The air in my apartment suddenly felt suffocating. I pushed myself up, pacing the small space between my couch and the kitchen, trying to think. I needed answers, and there was only one person who could give them to me. I didn't sleep. By the time the sun rose, I was out the door, knocking on my landlord's office. Mrs. Callahan, a woman in her late 60s with sharp eyes and a permanent frown, answered with an annoyed sigh. "What do you want?" I hesitated. "I need to ask about Mr. Holloway." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" I swallowed. "Has he lived here long?" She sighed, rubbing her temples like she already regretted talking to me. "Too long." "What do you mean?" She looked me over, then motioned for me to step inside her cluttered office. I did, shutting the door behind me. Mrs. Callahan sat behind her desk, fixing me with a hard stare. "Listen, kid, whatever's going on with Holloway, you'd be smart to stay out of it." My stomach tightened. "So you do know something?" She exhaled sharply. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" I shook my head. She muttered something under her breath before leaning forward. "He's been in that apartment for over 10 years. Moved in with his wife. Real nice lady, real polite. They were happy. For a while. A sinking feeling took hold of me. What happened?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She disappeared. My breath caught. "What?" Mrs. Callahan nodded grimly. "One day just gone. No explanation. Holloway said she left him. Packed up in the middle of the night and took off." Something cold settled in my chest. "That doesn't sound right." "No, it doesn't." She stared at me. But there was no evidence of foul play. Cops questioned him, but they never found anything. I licked my lips. My throat felt like sandpaper. "And no one ever saw her again?" She shook her head. "Not a trace." I gripped the armrest of my chair. I knew the answer before I even asked. "What was her name?" Mrs. Callahan studied me for a long moment. Then she spoke. "Evelyn." My blood ran cold. That name. It was the same name Mr. Holloway had been whispering in the dark. Evelyn. The missing wife. The thing in his closet. I pushed back from my chair, standing abruptly. "Thank you." Mrs. Callahan narrowed her eyes. "You're not going to do something stupid, are you?" I hesitated. Then, I turned and left without answering. The apartment hallway felt different when I returned. The air was too still. The silence felt too heavy. And Mr. Holloway's door was open. Not wide open, just a sliver. Enough to invite me in. I stared at it, my pulse pounding. No, I wasn't going in there again. Not alone. But then, a sound. A faint, choked sob from inside the apartment. "Mr. Holloway." I cursed under my breath. Damn it. I couldn't just walk away. I inched forward, my hands clammy, my breath shallow. Slowly, carefully, I pushed the door open. The living room was the same wreck it had been the night before. But this time, Mr. Holloway was there, sitting on the floor, his back to me, his shoulders shaking. A slow, wet scraping sound filled the air. It took me a second to realize what it was. Mr. Holloway was dragging his nails across the floor, over and over. Deep red lines marked the carpet beneath him. I swallowed hard. Mr. Holloway? He froze. For a long moment, he didn't turn. Then, very slowly, he lifted his head. His voice was hoarse, broken. "She's still here." I took a shaky step forward. "Evelyn." His breath hitched. His hands gripped his hair. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. My skin prickled. "Mean to what?" I asked cautiously. He let out a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "She was leaving me," he choked. "I couldn't let her." He squeezed his eyes shut. "I pushed her." The words came out like a confession. A broken, guilt-ridden confession. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Oh my God. It was an accident." His voice cracked. "She hit her head. I didn't mean to. I didn't." His entire body trembled. I couldn't let them take her away. The room tilted around me. Suddenly, I understood everything. He had killed her, and he had kept her here. My voice barely came out. "Mr. Holloway, where is she?" He sucked in a ragged breath. Then, his head snapped toward the bedroom. The closet. My stomach twisted into knots. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I forced my legs to move. One step, then another. I reached the hallway. The bedroom door was open. The closet was still wide open. And this time, I saw her. Evelyn, or what was left of her. Her decayed body, slumped inside the dark space. Clothes hanging limply off brittle limbs. Her sunken, rotted face twisted in an expression of eternal sorrow. My stomach lurched. But the worst part? Her lips were moving. Her voice, dry and hollow, whispered into the darkness. "You let me die." And then, her head snapped toward me. I couldn't move. My feet were glued to the floor, my body frozen in terror. Evelyn's decayed head had snapped toward me, her hollowed-out eyes locking onto mine. Her lips were still moving, forming soundless words, but I couldn't focus on them. All I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. I wanted to run. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to turn around and get the hell out. But I didn't, because deep in my bones, I knew something terrible. If I ran, she would follow. A rattling breath echoed through the darkened bedroom. Evelyn's jaw twitched, her mouth hanging open just slightly, like she was about to speak. And then, she did. "Nathan." The sound of my name sent ice through my veins. She knew me. She had always known me. Her lips trembled as she whispered again. "Nathan, don't leave me." I sucked in a breath so sharply it burned my lungs. How did she know my name? Behind me, Mr. Holloway let out a strangled sob. "You can see her, can't you?" His voice was hoarse, broken. I turned to face him, barely able to think. He had moved. He was still sitting on the floor, but now his wide, bloodshot eyes were locked onto me with an expression I couldn't place. "Why, you can see her," he repeated, almost in wonder. I swallowed. My throat was painfully dry. What is she?" His whole body trembled. "My wife." The way he said it, so empty, so final, sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. I turned back to the closet. Evelyn hadn't moved. She was watching me. Her lips twitched again, and suddenly I could make out the words she had been whispering all along. "Why did you let me die?" I staggered back, nearly tripping over my own feet. "No," I whispered. "I didn't." Her head jerked unnaturally, like something was pulling it from behind. I flinched. "I didn't let you die," I choked out. "I don't even know you." Silence. Then, a wet, cracking sound. Evelyn's neck twisted a little too far to the side, her rotted mouth twitching. "Liar." The word sent a violent shudder through me. She started moving. Not walking. Not crawling. Sliding. Her body didn't shift on its own. It was as if some invisible force was pulling her forward, dragging her from the closet's darkness inch by inch. I stumbled back faster, my breath coming out in panicked gasps. I needed to get out. Now. I turned toward Mr. Holloway, expecting him to be just as horrified as I was. But he wasn't. He was smiling. Not a normal smile. Not even a sinister one. A relieved smile. Like he had been waiting for this. "She chose you," he whispered. My blood ran cold. "What?" His lips quivered. His fingers trembled. "You heard her. She knows you." His voice cracked. "You're the one she wants." "No," I said immediately. "No, that's not. Take him." He screamed it. And in that exact moment, Evelyn lunged. She didn't move like a person. 1 second, she was slumped in the closet. The next, she was on top of me. Her rotting fingers latched onto my wrists, her face inches from mine. The smell, God, the smell, was suffocating. I struggled, trying to shove her off, but her grip was too strong. Impossible. And then, she whispered again. "You let me die." I screamed, and for the first time, I fought like my life depended on it. Because it did. I twisted violently, throwing all my weight to the side. Somehow, I managed to break free. I hit the ground hard, scrambling backward as fast as I could. My hands clawed at the floor, my vision swimming. Evelyn, or whatever was left of her, was still reaching for me. Mr. Holloway was laughing. I barely registered it as I threw myself out of the bedroom, down the hall, and toward the front door. I yanked it open and stumbled into the hallway, slamming the door shut behind me. I didn't stop. I ran. Straight into my own apartment, locking the door and collapsing onto the floor. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My entire body was shaking, drenched in cold sweat. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But it was. It was. And now I knew the truth. Evelyn was dead. Mr. Holloway killed her. And now she wanted me. But why? I gasped for air, my mind spinning in frantic circles. She had whispered my name. She knew me, but I didn't know her. I had never even met her. Had I? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to force the memories to come. Nothing. No Evelyn. No Mr. Holloway. So why was she saying I let her die? Why had she? My breath caught. A memory surfaced, sudden and uninvited. Not a full memory. Just a feeling. A moment. Years ago. I had seen her before. It wasn't clear. Just a vague recollection of a woman in passing. A glimpse of a face. Evelyn. And something else. Something much worse. I had been there the night she died. I had seen something, but I hadn't stopped it. I had walked away. And now, she was coming for me. I couldn't move. I sat on my apartment floor, my back against the door, my heart hammering so hard it felt like my ribs might crack under the pressure. The memory, it was there, just out of reach, like a shadow stretching across my mind. I had seen Evelyn before, and I had walked away. She was right. I let her die. A hollow, choking sensation crawled up my throat. My hands clenched into fists, my nails biting into my palms, but I barely noticed the pain. Outside my door, the hallway was eerily silent. I strained my ears, listening. No shuffling steps. No whispers. No Evelyn. But I knew she was still there. Somewhere. Waiting. The knowledge sent a violent shudder through my body. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to think. I had to go back. I had to remember. And that meant facing him again. I don't know how long I sat there before I finally stood up. Before I finally turned the doorknob and stepped back into the hallway. Mr. Holloway's door was still open. The dim glow from inside his apartment leaked out like a gaping wound. I swallowed hard. I didn't want to go back in there. But I had no choice. I forced my legs forward, my breathing unsteady. The moment I stepped inside, a sharp chill slid down my spine. Mr. Holloway was still in the same place, slumped on the floor, his back hunched, his head in his hands. His body shook with silent sobs. "She won't leave me," he rasped. His fingers clutched at his hair. "She won't ever leave me." I swallowed. "She's here." His shoulders stiffened. I took another step forward. I wasn't sure what I was doing. I wasn't even sure if I was scared anymore. I just wanted the truth. I stepped past him, my feet moving on instinct, until I reached the bedroom door. The closet door was still open. Evelyn was gone. My pulse jumped. I turned to Mr. Holloway, my voice barely a whisper. "Where is she?" His fingers slowly uncurled from his hair. His bloodshot eyes flickered toward mine. And then, he smiled. "She's with you now." A breath caught in my throat. The air shifted. A shadow moved behind me. I barely had time to react before something cold curled around my wrist. I screamed. I twisted away, stumbling back, but there was nothing there. Nothing I could see. But I felt it. The weight. The presence. I turned to Mr. Holloway in panic. His lips curled in something almost like relief. "She was never mine," he murmured. His gaze locked onto mine, dark and unreadable. My stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" He let out a breath, slow and measured. "You were there, Nathan." My blood turned to ice. No, I wasn't. But the words felt wrong in my mouth. Because somewhere, deep in the recesses of my mind, I knew. I had been there. The memory came suddenly. A rush of images crashing over me like a tidal wave. A cold night. A street lamp flickering overhead. An argument. I wasn't part of it. I was walking home, my hands shoved deep into my pockets. It had been late. I had been tired. I didn't want to get involved. But I had seen them. Evelyn. Mr. Holloway. They had been fighting outside the apartment building. Their voices sharp and angry. I remember hesitating, glancing toward them. I should have stepped in. But I didn't. I turned away. I started walking. And then, the sound. A sharp crack, like something heavy hitting the pavement. I had stopped in my tracks. My breath caught. Slowly, I turned my head, and I saw her, Evelyn, lying on the ground, her head at an unnatural angle. Mr. Holloway stood over her, his face pale as death itself. And I did nothing. I just stood there. And then slowly I backed away. I left. I staggered back against the wall, my entire body trembling. My breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. My voice cracked. I didn't know. I didn't. Mr. Holloway smiled sadly. You did. A choked sob slipped past my lips. I had left her. She hadn't died instantly. She had whispered for help. And I had walked away. I let her die. My hands curled into my hair. My mind spun. I had tried to forget. I had buried it so deep inside my mind that it had rotted away, festering in the darkness. But she never forgot. That was why she whispered. Why she waited. She wasn't haunting Mr. Holloway. She was haunting me. She had been waiting for me to remember. A sharp breath filled the air. And then, she was there. Behind me. I felt her. Cold fingers brushed my shoulder. I turned. And for the first time, I truly saw her. Not just a decayed corpse, not just a shadow, but Evelyn. Her lifeless eyes bore into mine. Her lips trembled. "You let me die," she whispered. Tears blurred my vision. My throat ached. "I know." I fell to my knees. "I'm sorry," I choked out. "I should have helped you. I should have done something." The silence stretched between us. She stared at me, unmoving. And then, slowly, her expression softened. The room shifted. I felt the weight in the air lift, just slightly. And for the first time, her lips parted to form different words. "Now you know," she murmured. And then, she was gone. I don't know how long I stayed there, kneeling on the floor, my breath uneven. When I finally looked up, Mr. Holloway was still watching me. His eyes were tired. "She's not coming back," he said quietly. I swallowed hard. "What happens now?" His lips twitched. "She's at peace." I let out a slow breath, my chest feeling lighter. But only just. I would never forgive myself. But she had forgiven me. That was all that mattered. I stood up. Without another word, I turned and walked out of his apartment. This time, I didn't run. I didn't need to, because the whispering in the dark was finally gone. The night grows deeper, and the echoes of the story slowly fade into the quiet. The whispers have ceased, leaving only the soft hum of the night to fill the space around you. Perhaps your mind still lingers in the shadows of what you've heard, tracing the edges of mystery, fear, and the unknown. But now it is time to let go. Breathe in slowly. Feel the weight of your body sinking into comfort. Exhale. Allow your thoughts to drift, like leaves carried away by the wind. Whatever lingers in your mind, let it settle. The night is here to embrace you, to wrap you in its stillness. But before you surrender to sleep, tell me, what do you think really happened? Was it all in Nathan's mind, or was Evelyn truly reaching out from beyond? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your theories. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more tales that blur the line between dreams and reality. Now close your eyes. Let the silence take over. And if you listen carefully, perhaps, just perhaps, you'll hear a whisper in the night. Sleep well.